The autumn wind swept across the University of Pennsylvania campus, scattering golden leaves across the worn brick pathways as Olivia Mitchell adjusted her camera angle for what felt like the 100th time. Just one more, she promised, though both she and her boyfriend, Ethan Cooper, knew it wouldn't be the last. The setting sun cast a perfect golden glow across their faces as they posed for yet another, candid, moment outside the Van Pelt Library. "How's this?" Ethan asked, his athletic frame casually leaning against the historic building's facade, perfectly positioned to catch the warm light. His sandy brown hair was artfully tousled, the result of 20 minutes of careful styling made to look effortless. "Perfect," Olivia beamed, her hazel eyes sparkling as she checked the photo on her phone. At 21, she had already amassed over 100,000 followers on Instagram, thanks to her carefully curated feed of campus life, fashion, and most importantly, her picture-perfect relationship with Ethan. "Our followers are going to love this one." Their love story was the stuff of modern fairy tales, or at least, that's how it appeared on social media. Star quarterback meets aspiring influencer in their sophomore year, and they become the campus's most enviable couple. Their hashtag #OliveEthan, had become a symbol of relationship goals for their combined following of over 200,000 people. What their followers didn't see were the countless retakes, the carefully planned, spontaneous moments, and the growing pressure to maintain their online persona. Behind each perfectly filtered photo was an increasingly complex reality that neither of them was ready to face. "We should head to the coffee shop," Olivia suggested, already thinking about their next content opportunity. "The new seasonal drinks just launched, and I promised my followers a couple's review." Ethan nodded, but there was a slight hesitation in his movement that Olivia chose to ignore. They had built something special together, not just a relationship, but a brand. Their sponsored posts paid for their textbooks, their dates, and occasionally their rent. It was a business as much as it was a romance, and they both knew it. As they walked hand in hand across campus, their matched steps practiced to perfection, Olivia's mind wandered to their upcoming 3rd anniversary. 3 years of documenting every milestone, every tender moment, every unexpected surprise. The pressure to make it bigger, better, and more Instagram-worthy than their previous celebrations weighed heavily on her shoulders. What she didn't know was that Ethan had been harboring thoughts of his own, ones that wouldn't fit into their carefully filtered feed. The growing distance between their online presence and their real connection had been gnawing at him for months. But how do you tell your girlfriend that you're tired of performing your relationship for an audience when that performance has become the foundation of both your identities? Their arrival at the trendy coffee shop was met with the usual knowing smiles from the baristas. They were local celebrities in their own right, and their regular coffee date posts had helped put this place on the map for fellow students and followers alike. The usual, asked Sarah, their favorite barista who had become accustomed to their content creation routine. She knew to make their drinks extra photogenic, with perfect latte art and precisely placed caramel drizzle. Actually, Ethan spoke up, surprising both Olivia and Sarah, "I think I'll try something different today." Olivia felt her chest tighten. This wasn't part of the plan. Their followers expected consistency, the same drinks, the same poses, the same perfect couple they'd fallen in love with. "But honey, we always get our signature drinks for the seasonal reviews," she reminded him, her voice maintaining its sweetness despite the edge of panic. "Maybe it's time for something new," Ethan replied, his voice carrying a weight that seemed to refer to more than just coffee. As they waited for their drinks, one familiar, one unexpected, Olivia busied herself with setting up the perfect shot angle. But her mind was racing. She had built her entire brand around their relationship, their perfect synchronicity. Any deviation from their carefully constructed narrative felt like a threat to everything they'd built. What their followers couldn't see was the slight tremor in Olivia's hands as she positioned their drinks, or the distant look in Ethan's eyes as he posed for yet another spontaneous laugh. The perfect lighting couldn't illuminate the growing shadows between them, and no filter could smooth over the cracks beginning to form in their facade. Later that evening, as Olivia sat in her dorm room meticulously editing their coffee shop photos, she received a text from Ethan that would change everything. "Can we talk?" "Not for the camera this time." Those words sent a chill down her spine that no amount of cozy autumn content could warm. As she stared at her phone screen, the carefully arranged photos on her laptop suddenly seemed less important. The reality she had been trying to filter out was demanding to be heard, and for the first time in their relationship, she wasn't sure if she was ready for the unedited truth. What she didn't know was that Ethan had spent the past week talking to his best friend, Marcus, about an idea that could either save their relationship or end it completely. An idea that would test not just their love, but their understanding of what was real and what was just content for their eager audience. As Olivia typed out her response, "Meet me at our bench in 10. She couldn't help but wonder if this conversation would be the one that finally didn't make it to their feed. The bench by the campus lake had been the backdrop for countless romantic posts, but tonight it would witness something their followers would never see, a raw, unfiltered moment between two people trying to figure out if their love was still real beneath all the perfectly crafted posts. The sun had long since set, and the carefully planned golden hour lighting was replaced by the harsh reality of fluorescent campus lamps. As Olivia grabbed her coat and headed out into the night, she left her camera behind for the first time in what felt like forever. Whatever was about to happen, she knew it wouldn't be something she could filter into perfection. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a story that would test everything she thought she knew about love, authenticity, and the price of maintaining a perfect image in an imperfect world. The real question wasn't whether their relationship would survive, it was whether what they had was even real to begin with. As she walked across the darkening campus, the likes and comments that usually filled her with validation seemed hollow. Tonight, she would have to face the truth that had been hiding behind their carefully curated feed, and no amount of strategic angles or perfect lighting could prepare her for what was coming. Part 2, The Proposition. The campus lake reflected the moonlight like scattered diamonds on its surface as Olivia approached their bench. Ethan was already there, his tall figure silhouetted against the dark water. For once, neither of them reached for their phones to capture the moment. "Hey," she said softly, settling beside him on the wooden bench where they'd filmed countless reels and TikToks. The familiar spot felt different in the darkness, more real somehow. Ethan turned to her, his blue eyes serious in the dim light. "Our engagement numbers have been dropping," he said without preamble. It wasn't what Olivia had expected him to say, and she felt a mixture of relief and disappointment that this was about their social media presence. "I know," she admitted. "I've been trying to come up with new content ideas, but—" Marcus had an interesting suggestion, Ethan interrupted, running a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he never allowed himself during filming. "What if we gave our followers what they really want? Drama. Conflict. A story they can't look away from." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying? What if we fake a breakup?" The words hung in the air between them, heavier than any silence they'd ever shared. Olivia's first instinct was to reject the idea outright, but the social media strategist in her was already seeing the potential engagement metrics. "Think about it," Ethan continued, warming to his theme. "We script the perfect breakup story, dramatic enough to go viral, but believable enough to seem real. We milk it for a few months, build the suspense, then have an epic reconciliation that'll blow up all our platforms. You want us to lie to our followers?" Olivia asked, but she was already imagining the possibilities. The sympathetic comments, the speculation, the trending hashtags. It was marketing gold. "We're already lying," Ethan pointed out gently. "Every perfectly staged photo, every scripted moment, it's all carefully curated content. This would just be taking it to the next level." He wasn't wrong. Their relationship had become more performance than reality lately, both of them going through the motions for their audience rather than for each other. Maybe this could be a way to inject some excitement back into their dynamic, even if it was just for show. "How would we do it?" she found herself asking. Ethan's face lit up with an enthusiasm she hadn't seen from him in months. Marcus and I have it all planned out. We start with subtle hints, fewer couple posts, some cryptic captions about trust and truth. Then we have a public argument at the biggest party of the semester. Everyone will be recording it, and it'll spread organically. The more he talked, the more convinced Olivia became. This could be huge for their brands. Companies loved a good redemption story. They could double their sponsorship deals after the reconciliation. But something still nagged at her. Won't it be weird? Pretending to be broken up while we're still together. That's the brilliant part, Ethan explained, his excitement building. We'll have to keep our real relationship completely secret. No dates, no public displays of affection, nothing that could tip people off. It'll be like a covert operation. Olivia's mind raced with the possibilities. We could even stage some jealousy scenarios, she suggested, getting caught up in the planning. You could be seen with other girls, I could post some ambiguous photos with other guys. Exactly. Ethan grinned. And think of the story we'll tell afterward, how the time apart made us realize what we really mean to each other. It's perfect. They spent the next 2 hours plotting their fake breakup in meticulous detail, the initial tension forgotten in their shared excitement over this new project. It felt good to be working together again, even if it was on an elaborate deception. What neither of them acknowledged was the irony of their situation, that the most honest conversation they'd had in months was about faking a breakup. Or that perhaps the reason this plan felt so exciting was that it gave them permission to express the doubts and frustrations they'd been hiding from each other. As they walked back to their dorms that night, they were already in character, maintaining a careful distance between them, their usual hand holding conspicuously absent. Olivia drafted and redrafted her first cryptic Instagram story. Sometimes the hardest part is admitting something's wrong. The responses were immediate. Their followers, trained to analyze every detail of their relationship, began speculating within minutes. Olivia watched the notifications roll in with a mixture of guilt and satisfaction. This was what she was good at: crafting narratives, engaging audiences, building suspense. What she didn't expect was the hollow feeling in her stomach as she read comment after comment expressing concern and support. These people genuinely cared about their relationship, believed in their love story. Was it wrong to manipulate that investment for views and likes? But it was too late for second thoughts. The plan was in motion, and their first major scene was scheduled for this weekend's fraternity party. As Olivia lay in bed that night, scrolling through old photos of her and Ethan for inspiration for her upcoming sad girl content, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. Little did she know, their carefully scripted drama was about to take some very unscripted turns. Because while you can plan a fake breakup down to the smallest detail, you can't control how real feelings evolve when you're pretending not to be in love. In her last post of the night, Olivia shared a quote that would prove more prophetic than she intended: "Be careful when you play pretend, sometimes the game becomes more real than you planned." Her followers assumed it was about their relationship status. They weren't entirely wrong, just not in the way they thought. As she drifted off to sleep, her phone buzzing with notifications, Olivia couldn't help but wonder, in pretending to fall apart, would she and Ethan discover what was really holding them together? Or were they about to turn their carefully filtered fantasy into a messy, unedited reality? The weekend's party loomed ahead of them, promising to be the beginning of either their greatest content creation triumph or their biggest personal disaster. Perhaps, Olivia thought as sleep finally claimed her, it would turn out to be both. Part 3, The Performance. The Alpha Sigma Phi house was already pulsing with music when Olivia arrived on Saturday night. She'd spent 3 hours getting ready, not for the usual perfect photos, but for what would become the most viewed breakup video in their university's social media history. Her outfit was carefully chosen, a stunning red dress that would stand out in shaky smartphone footage, makeup done to look flawless even when crying. "You ready for this?" Madison, her best friend and one of the few people in on their plan, whispered as they entered the party. They'd rehearsed the scenario countless times in Olivia's dorm room, the confrontation, the tears, the dramatic exit. Everything had to look spontaneous yet camera-worthy. "Ready as I'll ever be," Olivia replied, her hands shaking slightly as she accepted a drink from a passing fraternity brother. She needed to time her entrance perfectly, giving enough people a chance to start recording before the drama unfolded. Across the room, she spotted Ethan with his football teammates. Right on cue, Rachel Chen, a sophomore they'd recruited for their plan, was hanging on his every word, laughing too loudly at his jokes. The sight made Olivia's stomach twist unexpectedly. Even knowing it was all staged, something about seeing another girl so close to Ethan felt wrong. The night progressed according to their script. Olivia posted a series of increasingly emotional Instagram stories, each one designed to build tension. A cryptic quote about betrayal. A blurry photo of Ethan and Rachel. A close-up of her empty wrist, conspicuously missing the bracelet Ethan had given her for their anniversary. Their followers were already buzzing with speculation when Olivia finally approached Ethan and Rachel. The party seemed to quiet down, as if the crowd could sense the impending drama. Phones were already raised, recording what everyone expected to be prime social media content. "How could you?" Olivia's voice cracked perfectly, just as they'd practiced. "With her? Really?" Ethan played his part flawlessly, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Liv, it's not what you think. Don't live me." She was surprised by how real the anger in her voice felt. "I saw the messages, Ethan. I saw everything." The crowd drew closer, phones recording from every angle. Rachel stepped back, playing the guilty party to perfection. Madison stood nearby, ready to comfort Olivia after her planned exit. But something strange happened then, something that wasn't in their carefully crafted script. As Olivia looked into Ethan's eyes, preparing to deliver her final, devastating line, she saw something that made her freeze. Behind his practiced expression was a flash of genuine emotion she couldn't quite read. "I trusted you," she said, but the words came out different than they had in rehearsal. They felt heavier, more real. "I gave you everything." Ethan's reply wasn't what they'd planned either. "Did you?" he asked, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Or did you give everything to the camera?" The party around them faded into background noise as they stared at each other, suddenly unsure of what was performance and what was real. This wasn't how the scene was supposed to go. "You're the one who came up with this plan," Olivia found herself saying, breaking character completely. "Maybe because it was the only way to get you to see what's really happening to us," Ethan replied, his words barely audible over the music but hitting Olivia like physical blows. The crowd of partygoers, still filming eagerly, had no idea that the real drama was happening in the subtext. To them, this looked like the perfect viral breakup moment. But to Olivia, it felt like the carefully constructed walls between their online persona and their real relationship were crumbling. "I can't do this anymore," she said, and even she wasn't sure if she was still acting. She turned and ran from the party, exactly as planned, but her tears were real this time. Madison followed, concern written across her face. This wasn't the triumphant content creation moment they'd envisioned. It felt more like a genuine unraveling. The videos went viral overnight, just as they'd hoped. #OliveEthanBreakup started trending on campus social media, then spread to wider platforms. Their follower count skyrocketed. Brands reached out, wanting to be part of their story. Everything was going according to plan. Except nothing felt right anymore. In the days that followed, Olivia found herself struggling to maintain their charade. Every sad selfie felt like a lie, but also somehow like the most honest content she'd ever posted. When she caught glimpses of Ethan across campus, deliberately ignoring each other for their audience, the pain in her chest felt anything but fake. Their private text conversations, once filled with planning and excitement about their scheme, became increasingly strained. "Ethan, the engagement numbers are insane. We should probably be seen arguing in the library tomorrow. Olivia, is that really all you care about now? Ethan, isn't that what this was always about? Olivia, I don't even know anymore. The lines between performance and reality became increasingly blurred. When Olivia posted late-night stories about not being able to sleep, she really was lying awake, wondering how their perfect plan had led them here. When Ethan was photographed looking miserable at football practice, his dejected expression wasn't just for show. Their friends started taking sides, even the ones who knew the truth. Madison pulled Olivia aside after class one day, her face serious. "You need to end this," she said. "The fake breakup. It's not fake anymore, can't you see that?" But they were in too deep now. Their separate content was performing better than their couple posts ever had. Olivia's makeup tutorial for covering crying-induced puffiness went viral. Ethan's workout series, branded as post-breakup revenge body content, attracted new sponsorship deals. They were succeeding beyond their wildest dreams, even as they were falling apart in reality. The breaking point came 3 weeks after the party. Olivia was filming a "Moving On" series for her Instagram when she saw it, a candid photo of Ethan and Rachel at a coffee shop, one they hadn't planned. The way he was looking at her, laughing at something she'd said, was painfully genuine. For the first time since this all began, Olivia turned off her phone. She sat in her dorm room, surrounded by ring lights and cameras, and finally confronted the truth they'd been dancing around. In pretending to break up, they'd somehow broken something real. That night, she sent Ethan a text that would change everything again: "We need to talk. No cameras. No scripts. Just us." His response came hours later: "Meet me where this all started." As Olivia walked toward their bench by the lake for the second time in a month, she wondered if some things, once broken even in pretense, could ever truly be fixed. The moon was full again, but this time, she knew the conversation they were about to have wouldn't be about content creation or engagement metrics. This time, they would have to face the reality they'd been filtering out of their perfect online love story. Sometimes the hardest performances to maintain are the ones we put on for ourselves. Part 4, The Truth. The lake was eerily still when Olivia arrived, its surface like black glass under the autumn moon. Ethan was already there. Some habits die hard, but this time he was sitting on the ground rather than their usual bench. Something about the way he'd abandoned their carefully curated spot told Olivia this conversation would be different from any they'd had before. "No phone?" he asked as she approached, noticing her empty hands. "No phone," she confirmed, settling down beside him on the grass. She didn't care about the damage to her designer jeans. "Another first. I saw you and Rachel today." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, picking at the grass beside him. "It wasn't planned," he finally said. "I know. That's what made it hurt so much more. When did this become so complicated?" "Maybe it always was," Ethan replied, his voice carrying a weight she'd never heard before. "Maybe we were just too busy getting the perfect shot to notice." The silence that followed was heavy with 3 years of filtered memories and staged moments. Olivia thought about their first real date. Had it been real? Or had it been content from the very beginning? She couldn't remember anymore if they'd chosen that restaurant because they wanted to go there, or because it had the best lighting for photos. "Do you remember why we started dating?" she asked suddenly. Ethan looked surprised by the question. "Of course. It was after the homecoming game. You were wearing that blue dress. The one that matched your team colors," Olivia interrupted. "I planned that, you know. I knew it would make a great story for my followers if the quarterback noticed me." The admission hung between them like a fog, obscuring everything they thought they knew about their beginning. "I asked you out because Marcus said we'd be the perfect power couple on campus," Ethan confessed after a moment. "He said with your following and my football career, we could build something huge." They sat with these truths, letting them sink in. 3 years of relationship built on a foundation of strategic decisions and marketing potential. But I fell in love with you for real, Olivia said softly, surprising herself with the declaration. Somewhere between all the staged photos and scripted captions, I actually fell in love with you. I know, Ethan replied, his voice gentle. That's what made this so hard. We created something real inside something fake, and now I can't tell where one ends and the other begins. And Rachel? The question she'd been afraid to ask finally escaped. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so authentically him that it made Olivia's heart ache. She sees me, he said simply. Not the quarterback, not the Instagram boyfriend, not the content creator. Just me. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Tears rolled down Olivia's cheeks, and for the first time in years, she didn't worry about how they might ruin her makeup. I see you too, she whispered. Do you? Ethan asked, turning to face her fully. Or do you see the person I pretend to be for our followers? Because sometimes I look at our photos, and I don't recognize myself anymore. The truth of his words hit her like a physical pain. She thought about their recent content, the carefully choreographed breakup, the strategic posts, the planned drama. None of it reflected the real pain they were experiencing right now, sitting on the damp grass in the dark. We're really good at this, aren't we? She said with a bitter laugh. So good at pretending that we fooled ourselves. Maybe that's why this fake breakup is working so well, Ethan suggested. Because somewhere along the way, it stopped being fake. The realization settled over them like the autumn mist gathering around the lake. Their performance had become reality, but not in the way they'd planned. Instead of a fake breakup leading to a triumphant reunion, they'd stumbled into a real separation hidden within their pretense. So what do we do now? Olivia asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. I think. Ethan paused, choosing his words carefully. I think we need to stop performing and start being real. Both online and off. You mean actually break up? The words felt different now that they weren't part of a script. Maybe. Or maybe we need to break up with who we've been pretending to be. He turned to look at her, his eyes sincere in a way they hadn't been in their recent photos. I miss the real you, Liv. I miss the girl who used to laugh without checking if anyone was filming. I miss the way you used to look at me when there weren't any cameras around. I miss the real you too, she admitted. I miss the boy who used to make terrible jokes just to make me smile, not for the content. I miss the way we used to be before every moment became a potential post. They sat in silence for a while, watching the mist dance across the lake's surface. Everything felt more real in the darkness, away from ring lights and filters. We can't keep doing this, Olivia finally said. This half-real, half-fake relationship. It's destroying both versions of us. I know, Ethan agreed. But I don't know how to stop. Our whole lives are built around this now. The sponsors, the followers, the expectations. Maybe that's the problem, Olivia mused. We've built our relationship around what other people expect from us. What if we built something real instead? You mean start over? No, she shook her head. I mean tell the truth. All of it. About the fake breakup, about how we lost ourselves in the performance, about everything. The suggestion hung in the air between them, both terrifying and liberating. Their entire social media empire was built on the carefully curated image of perfect love. Revealing the truth could destroy everything they'd worked for. Our followers would hate us, Ethan pointed out. Maybe, Olivia agreed. Or maybe they'd finally see us, the real us. And maybe that's worth more than all the likes and sponsorships in the world. As they sat there, contemplating the biggest risk of their social media careers, Olivia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She'd brought it after all, out of habit. It was a notification. Rachel had just posted a story. Against her better judgment, Olivia pulled out her phone. The image was simple, a coffee cup with a caption about finding unexpected connections. Nothing spectacular, nothing staged. Yet something about its genuine simplicity made Olivia's chest tighten. "She really does see you, doesn't she?" Olivia said, showing Ethan the post. He looked at it for a long moment before speaking. "Yeah," he said softly. "She does." In that moment, sitting by the lake with their perfectly crafted world crumbling around them, Olivia made a decision that would change everything. She opened Instagram, turned on her front-facing camera, and pressed record. "Hey guys," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "No filters, no scripts, no perfect lighting. Just the truth. It's time I told you a story about a girl who got so lost in performing love that she forgot how to actually feel it." Ethan watched her with a mixture of surprise and understanding as she began to unravel their carefully constructed narrative. Sometimes, he realized, the bravest thing you can do is stop pretending. As Olivia spoke to her phone, her voice growing stronger with each word of truth, neither of them knew exactly what would happen next. But for the first time in years, whatever came next would be completely, utterly real. Part 5, The Reality. The aftermath of Olivia's confession video was exactly what they'd expected, and nothing like they'd imagined. Within hours, #OliveEthanTruth was trending across campus social media platforms, quickly spreading beyond their university bubble to become a national conversation about authenticity in the age of influencers. Some followers were furious, feeling betrayed by the manufactured drama they'd invested in. Others praised their honesty, calling it a brave expose of social media's artificial nature. Brands they'd worked with scrambled to distance themselves, while new ones reached out, eager to be part of their authenticity campaign. But Olivia and Ethan weren't watching the numbers anymore. In the weeks that followed, they navigated their new reality with careful, tentative steps. They weren't a couple anymore, not in the traditional sense, but they weren't exactly just friends either. They were something else entirely, two people who had shared an intense experience of creating and dismantling a fantasy together. "It's weird," Olivia told Madison over coffee one morning, at a small cafe they'd never featured on their feeds because the lighting was too dim for photos. "I feel like I'm grieving two relationships, the real one and the one we performed." Madison, who had stuck by her through everything, nodded understanding. "Maybe you need to grieve both to move forward." Moving forward looked different than anyone had expected. Olivia started a new series on her platform called Unfiltered Truths, where she talked openly about the pressure to maintain perfect appearances and the toll it takes. Her following initially dropped, then grew again, this time attracting people who connected with her vulnerability rather than her perfection. Ethan's journey took a different path. He stepped back from social media almost entirely, focusing on his final season of football and his growing relationship with Rachel. When he did post, it was simple: game highlights, study sessions, genuine moments with friends. No staged photos, no carefully crafted captions. Their paths still crossed regularly. It was impossible to avoid on a campus where they'd once been royalty. But now their interactions had a different quality to them, something that felt more genuine than any of their perfectly posed photos had ever been. "How's the new video series going?" Ethan asked one day, when they ran into each other at the library. He was carrying a stack of books about sports psychology, his new passion that had nothing to do with social media metrics. "It's real," Olivia replied with a small smile. "Scary real sometimes. But good scary, you know." He nodded, because he did know. They both did. Rachel appeared then, coming around a bookshelf with her own stack of materials. There was an awkward moment where no one knew quite how to act. Their previous script didn't cover this scenario. But then Rachel did something unexpected. She smiled warmly at Olivia. "I loved your last video," she said sincerely. "The one about how we perform different versions of ourselves for different audiences. It really made me think." And surprisingly, Olivia found herself smiling back, genuinely. "Thanks. I'm learning a lot about that lately." As she watched Ethan and Rachel leave together, Olivia felt something shift inside her. The pain was still there, but it was different now, cleaner somehow, more honest. She pulled out her phone, opened Instagram, and started typing. Just ran into at Ethan Cooper and at Rachel Chen at the library. A year ago, I would have posted a carefully angled photo that made me look unbothered and thriving. 2 months ago, I would have staged a dramatic almost confrontation for views. Today, I'm just going to tell you the truth. It hurt a little, but it also felt right. Sometimes the messiest parts of life are the most real, and maybe that's exactly where we need to be. The post got fewer likes than her old content used to receive, but the comments were different, deeper, more meaningful. People shared their own stories of learning to be real in a world that rewards performance. 6 months after their fake breakup turned real, Olivia and Ethan found themselves back at their bench by the lake. It wasn't planned, they both just happened to end up there one evening, seeking quiet moments away from campus chaos. "Do you ever miss it?" Olivia asked as they sat there, a comfortable distance between them. "The perfect couple thing?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I miss some parts," he admitted. "The certainty of knowing exactly what to do, what to say. Everything was scripted, planned. Real life is messier. But better," she wondered aloud. He glanced at her, then looked out at the lake. "Different. More honest." He paused. "Rachel and I had our first fight last week. Real fight, not staged. And you know what? It felt good to actually work through something genuine instead of performing perfection." Olivia nodded, understanding completely. She'd been on a few dates recently, real ones, where she left her phone in her bag and actually got to know people without thinking about how they'd look on her feed. "We were really good at being fake together," she said thoughtfully. "Maybe we needed that to learn how to be real apart." As if on cue, both their phones buzzed. Someone had posted an old photo of them from their couple days, a throwback that was gaining traction in campus social circles. They looked at it together, almost like watching a movie of different people. "We look so perfect there," Ethan observed. "We look so young," Olivia countered. "So, unfinished." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two people who had shared something unique, the experience of crafting a love story that had taught them both about the meaning of real love, even as it fell apart. Later that night, Olivia posted one last time about their story. "A year ago, at Ethan Cooper and I decided to fake a breakup for content. Instead, we found something we weren't looking for, the truth about ourselves. We learned that real love isn't about perfect photos or viral moments. Sometimes it's about having the courage to be imperfect together, and sometimes it's about having the strength to be real apart. Today, we're not a couple, but we're not just friends either. We're two people who learned that the best stories aren't the ones you perform, they're the ones you live." The post went viral, but this time, neither of them checked the metrics. They didn't need to. For the first time since they'd met, they were both exactly where they needed to be, in reality, unfiltered and true. Across campus, thousands of students double-tapped the post, but its real impact wasn't in the likes or shares. It was in the quiet moments that followed, in Olivia's genuine laugh during a coffee date where she never once reached for her phone, and Ethan's unposed smile as Rachel beat him at their private study game, in the way they could now pass each other on campus with real, if slightly wistful, smiles. They had started with a fake breakup and ended with a real friendship, messier, more complicated, but infinitely more valuable than any perfectly filtered love story could ever be. And in the end, that was the best content of all, the simple, unedited truth of two people learning to be real in a world of carefully curated performances.